Cain is deified. The clans tell tales of him. Few know the truth. He was mortal once, as were we all. However, his contempt for humanity drove him to create me and my brethren. I am Raziel, firstborn of his lieutenants. I stood with Cain and my brethren at the dawn of the Empire. I have served him a millennium. Over time, we became less human and more divine. Cain would enter the state of change and emerge with a new gift. Some years after the Master, our evolution would follow, until I had the honor of surpassing my lord. For my transgression, I earned a new kind of reward. Agony. There was only one possible outcome. My eternal damnation. I, Raziel, was to suffer the fate of traitors and weaklings, to burn forever in the bowels of the Lake of the Dead.
Cast him in.
Tumbling, burning with white-hot fire, I plunged into the depths of the abyss. Unspeakable pain, relentless agony. Time ceased to exist. Only this torture and a deepening hatred of the hypocrisy that damned me to this hell. An eternity passed, and my torment receded, bringing me back from the precipice of madness. The descent had destroyed me, and yet I lived.
Raziel, you are worthy. I know you, Raziel. You are worthy.
What madness is this? What pitiful form is this that I have come to inhabit? Death would be a release next to this travesty.
You did not survive the abyss, Raziel. I have only spared you from total dissolution.
I would choose oblivion over this existence.
The choice is not yours.
I am destroyed.
You are reborn. The birth of one of Cain's abominations traps the essence of life. It is this soul that animates the corpse you lived in. And that, Raziel, is the demise of Nosgoth. There is no balance. The souls of the dead remain trapped. I cannot spin them in the wheel of fate. They cannot complete their destinies. Redeem yourself. Or if you prefer, avenge yourself. Settle your dispute with Cain. Destroy him and your brethren. Free their souls and let the wheel of fate churn again. Use your hatred to reave their souls. I can make it possible. Become my soul reaver, my angel of death.
Cast out from death's cold embrace, we find our soul reborn as an ethereal wraith in an abysmal lair of our enigmatic benefactor, a tentacle mass sprawled under the lake of the dead. This cephalopod claims to be an unknown elder god responsible for the continuous function of the Wheel of Fate. Moreover, our new master. We then cast our mind briefly to our old master, the architect of our downfall, Cain. Cain was once a human of petty noble lineage. Unbeknownst to Cain, he was born a member of a circle of guardians of Nosgoth, represented by a pillar and its principle. The pillars were inextricably tied to the spiritual and physical health of the land. Cain, however, was betrayed, being turned into a vampire in his quest for revenge by the necromancer Mortanius, and later, upon murdering each of the guardians, he eventually learned the truth of his lineage and was faced with an impossible choice of redemption at the cost of his own life. Sacrifice himself and allow the guardians and pillars to be reborn. Cain instead chose in his hubris to allow the pillars and Nosgoth itself to fall into a perpetual cycle of decay. Cain raised a cadre of vampires to serve him in his new kingdom. Now we, acting as the protagonist Raziel, hunt down our former brothers and master in a similar act of revenge that Cain once undertook. This is the full story of
Soul Reaver.
Departing the Elder God's chambers, we trace our way up the corridor adorned with cephalopod shell spirals, no doubt the symbol of the deity, and find ourselves at a gate to which he instructs.
These gates twist space, laying a path across great spans.
Stepping atop the steps to activate the gate, the great portal then thrums to life. We then view other gateways peppered across Nosgoth that we have to discover before we can travel between the two. Exiting via the door to our left, we find a new room that's full of pillars inscribed with glyphs, and find our strength levers as the Elder God explains.
You are weak. You must feed.
The old hunger has left me. I have no desire for blood.
You are changed. Your bloodthirst is replaced by a deeper need. You have become a devourer of souls. To sustain your strength, you must hunt the lost spirits of the underworld and consume the souls of your enemies.
Much like this tentacle god and his wheel, we too now must feed on spirits. However, after doing so, we attempt to leave and are thwarted by an invisible barrier.
You have much to learn, Raziel. When you are ready, this barrier will be dissolved.
Forced to turn back to the swirling green energies. We then open our cloak, exposing our fangs and missing jaw, as well as open more as we greedily absorb the life force of the dearly departed. Wholly satiated, we see our own glowing life meter that mimics the Elder God's, a green spiral at the bottom right of the screen, glowing, resplendent, and full. Stumbling over the hurdles, getting used to our new spectral form, or lack thereof, we then find we have new abilities, such as a high jump.
Your wings, though ruined, are not without purpose. Take hold of them as you leap, and they will carry you across this chasm.
The vestige of our wings' tattered remains then carry us across the chasm, allowing us not to take flight proper, but instead slows our descent. Turning the next corner, revulsed, we question.
What scabrous wretches are these?
Slua, the scavengers of the underworld. Their feral hunger has claimed countless souls, spirits who now shall never find their rest.
Indeed, these feral ghouls attempt to hide from our gaze, stalking aimlessly around the pillars. Although the first is dispatched easily in combat, and we absorb its soul, the second takes flight. The Slua being scuttling, cowardly scavengers, the hyenas/jackals of the spectral realm. They prey on the lost souls of the spirit world, and are brazen when in packs, but will try and flee to a safer distance if encountered alone. Heading up the final corridor as the light shimmers on the walls, we look up and realize that we've been underwater this entire time, and yet have not felt the weight of its presence.
These portals are your conduit between the spectral and material realms. With their aid, you may gather matter and will yourself to become manifest in the physical world. This is taxing, however. Your strength must first be fully restored. You require no conduit to return to this plane. You may abandon your physical body at any time.
Willing ourselves into the material world through the portal, the very reality begins to warp, pitch, and shift to something more familiar, more palatable.
Sustain your strength to prolong your manifestation in the physical world. If you fail to feed or absorb too many wounds, this fragile matter will dissolve.
Now, fun fact, if I may deviate from the story a moment and give Soul Reaver its much-deserved roses, as what we've seen with this plane-shifting ability is not only a monumental technical feat for the game and the time, but also, sometime after the release of Soul Reaver, it was revealed by Dennis Dyack of Silicon Knights that it had originally been intended as a standalone title and was altered to become a sequel to Blood Omen instead. The concept was called Shifter, obviously a reference to the plane-shifting gameplay mechanic, and the storyline involved the main character being thrown down by his master and brothers, only to return to hunt them down, if that sounds familiar. The game itself would incorporate angelic and other biblical imagery. However, back to Raziel's plight. Gaining our bearings in the physical world, we see the underwater entrance to the underworld is now blocked, the only clue to its existence being the spiral symbol etched in the wall.
You are young yet, Raziel. You still retain many of your vampiric weaknesses. Immersion in water, while not fatal, will dissolve your physical body, forcing your return to the spirit world. Be aware that in the spectral realm, water has neither heft nor lift. It stands as thin as air.
Barely crossing the gap successfully, the water licks at our heels.
Creatures.
Do you not recognize them? They are the children of your brother, Duma.
That's impossible. These foul, scuttling beasts could not be kin of our high blood?
Do you suppose that time stood still for you, Raziel? Much has changed since you passed from the world of men.
Appalled at the very notion, our brother's clan has sunk so low. We begin to scan the room. To the left, over the water, we see our exit is barred, high above. And to the right, light bleeds into the room.
I knew my opponent's weaknesses, having suffered them myself. Physical wounds are fleeting. Vampire's immortal flesh begins to close as soon as it is cleaved. Vampires need only fear those wounds that impale or inflame. Water scorches like acid, and fledglings are devastated by sunlight's touch. I would have to modify my tactics to suit my foes.
Wasting no time, our two hungry adversaries close in on us, and our battle begins in earnest.
Unfettered from the flesh, a creature's soul fades swiftly into the spectral realm. Draw it in quickly, Raziel, or you will be compelled to follow.
As we dispatch our foes, we discover the human corpse rend asunder, and discover the vampires, despite their wretched state, still require blood. Now, as a gameplay aside, if we leap into the water, we quickly discover its acidic properties as we're ripped from the physical realm back into our spiritual form. And it should also be noted, we discover a stamina boosting boon, as Soul Reaver is littered with collectibles. However, we cannot access it due to the grating, and Soul Reaver also imparts powers and abilities piecemealed over time for Raziel's arsenal, and features, well, an excessive amount of backtracking. As this series is first and foremost lore play focused on narrative, unfortunately we just don't have the time to hunt down some collectibles, though there are 100% walkthroughs and handy guides online for the completionists out there. Heading back to the center of this macabre tunnel, we see above our exit, though no discernible way to get there, until a voice exclaims,
Your physical prowess surpasses what you knew in life. Even massive obstacles can be moved effortlessly.
Digging our powerful claws into the side of the block, we find they can even pierce metal, and we have the strength to drag it across the room. Plus, pressing square initiates a handy push mechanic. Leaping from the block, we make our way out of this dreary sewer, racing around the final serpentine corridor, and to our horror, discover what has become of Nosgoth as we take our first steps outside.
My God! The sanctuary of the clans reduced to ruin. Beyond these walls lay the pillars of Nosgoth, the seat of Kain's empire. How humble it now appeared, collapsing into the dust of its former magnificence. And yet, I had only just emerged. In the instant between my execution and resurrection, centuries had apparently passed.
This world is wrecked with cataclysms. The earth strains to shrug off the pestilence of Kain's parasitic empire. The fate of this world was preordained in an instant by a solitary man. Unwilling to martyr himself to restore Nosgoth's balance, Kain condemned the world to the decay you see. In that moment, the unraveling began. Now it is nearly played out. Nosgoth teeters on the brink of collapse. Its fragile balance cannot hold.
As we look in horror at the state of the clan citadels, we know our dark journey has just begun. So make sure to subscribe for the upcoming episodes. And if you want to support the channel in a more personal way, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber. As always, thanks for watching. Until next time, Traveler.